Bruchim habayim. Welcome everyone. Start with acknowledging the giving Hakaras Hatov to our learning sponsors. A year of learning by the learning friends in memory of Saul Chapman, Yisrael Kalman ben Moshe. A year by the friends of Judy Garber in her memory, Yehudis Bas Shalom. A year by the friends of Alvin Greenfield in his memory, Avram ben Yaakov. A month of learning by Josh and Carol Sanborn in memory of his father, Shmuel Aryeh ben Baruch, and his mother, Chiana bat Aryeh Lev. A month of learning by Andrea and David Doley in memory of her mother, Adel Tzina bat Shimshon. A month by Jill and Perry Meltzer in memory of her father, Yaakov ben Yosef. A month by Meir and Chaya Sarah Briban and Michael Briban in memory of Meir and Michael's father, Zelek ben Moshe, their mother, Bella bat Elimelech, their uncle, Mendel ben Elimelech, and Chaya Sarah's father, Menashe ben Yitzchak Yaakov. And that is the sponsorships for the day. May their neshamos have an aliyah. So first I wanted to thank Marty Levine for the idea of moving this class to Wednesday from Tuesday. And I see a few people from Marty's class decided to stay and try it out and see whether they're going to like this. So I also wanted to talk about the schedule for the rest of the season. I know that most of the classes either are winding up this week or they already have. And Marty and I talked about it briefly, whether we were going to just stop or maybe continue as long as people continue to want to come. So we're going to be here. Middle and I are going to be here actually in Florida until the end of May, with just 1 week where we're taking off a few days to do some business up north. Otherwise, we'll be here till the end of May, beginning of June. So as long as people want to come, I don't see any reason why we should not continue. So the other classes seem to have stopped, but I think that we're going to continue. As long as people want to keep coming, we're going to keep teaching it. And a few weeks ago, on Shabbos afternoon, it was a very heavy rain, maybe you remember. And one of the jobs that I do down here is I teach Daf Yomi on Shabbos afternoon. And it was pouring rain, and I decided I'm going to go anyway because I trusted that the people would be there. And when I got there, they were all there because they trusted I was going to be there too. So this is a two-way street. We're going to continue. Last week I talked a little bit about the benefit of primary source research. In other words, not to just trust what somebody tells you or what you might read in some translation. So we're going to do a little bit of primary source today. And we're going to be learning the Mishnayos about Purim, those that relate to Purim, from Masechta Megillah. There's about 8 or 9, and then we'll see how far we get today. If not, we don't finish today, we'll continue and complete it next week. So, very interestingly, a good friend once told me that whatever you're learning during the week, somehow or other the Parsha connects to it in some way. And on Shabbos, the Daf Yomi had a very interesting comment because the Mishnah and the Gemara are always interested to know who is the author of a particular Mishnah, particularly. And in the Gemara, more or less, it's mentioned who it is that's saying it. But the Mishnah, many Mishnayos are not attributed. There's no author listed. So in most cases, we believe it's Rabbi Meir. And Rabbi Meir, what he did was to actually write down the Mishnayos that were compiled and brought together by Rabbi Akiva. And in most cases, we're going to see that Rabbi Meir is the author. But still, the Gemara wants to know who it is. And in a particular Mishnah, which I'm not going to go into today, they discovered who it was that said it. And so then the statement was made, V'chol ha'omer davar b'shem omro, anyone who repeats something in the name of that person who said it. In other words, plagiarism was a problem then as it is today. People would make statements that were actually made by someone prior to them and did not give credit. So the Gemara says anybody that says something in the name of the person who said it, Mevi Gu'ula Olam, brings redemption to the world. Shenamar v'tomer Esther lemelech b'shem Mordechai. And here we are in the month of Adar. We're going to be talking about the Mishnayos of Sefer Megillah. And so the Daf Yomi on Shabbos talked about somebody who gives a credit to a person who said something. And the pasuk in the Megillah, it says, Vayamim Haim, Mordechai Yoshe Bashar HaMelech. It's very famous, everybody knows. Mordechai was sitting in the king's courtyard. Kasa Bigsa V'teresh, Shnei Sarisei HaMelech, Mishamrei Asaf. Two of the people who were the guards of the gate, basically, Vayivakshel shloch yad b'melech Achashverosh, and they plotted to injure the king. Vayivodah Mordechai. Mordechai found out about it. Vayagela Esther Hamalka, and he told Queen Esther. Vatomer Esther Lamelech b'shem Mordechai. So Esther repeated this bit of information to the king in the name of Mordechai, and we know what happened because later on, it was when Achashverosh could not sleep one night. He opened up the book of all the events that had taken place, and he discovered that Mordechai had given him this information, which basically saved his life. Mordechai had not been rewarded, and so on. Then the story began from there, where Haman leads Mordechai through the streets and so on. So I wanted to just tell you a little Devar Torah from the Sedra we're going to be reading on Shabbos, Parshas Vayikra. And I'm going to tell you this in the name of Rabbi Pinchas Teitz. I can't exactly duplicate his English. He had a beautiful English, though that was not his native tongue, but he spoke beautiful English, beautiful Yiddish, excellent Hebrew. And he said, when you take a look at some of the Pesukim, here's a Pasuk in the first Aliyah. It says, V'nosnu b'nei Aaron HaKohen, Eish HaMizbeach. So the sons of Aaron brought the fire onto the Mizbeach, V'archu eitzim ala eish, and they placed the wood on the fire. So Rabbi Teitz said, that sounds backwards, right? You put somehow, anybody that's ever made a barbecue or a fire in a fireplace, how do you do it? First, you arrange the wood, right? You arrange the wood, you have to set it up so that it's going to vent and it's going to burn and so on. And here the pasuk says he put the wood on top of the fire. So Rabbi Teitz was a builder. You know, he started out with a very small community. He took over from his father-in-law, and there were just very few people in the community that were Shomer Shabbos. But he built a huge community, 5 shuls and a yeshiva with over 900 students and so on. And he believed that if you have fire, you're always going to find wood. And I took that to heart all the years that I knew him. And here we are in our shul in Boca. We're about to begin a building project, and people are always saying, where are we going to find the money? So Rabbi Teitz gave us the answer. If you have fire, if you have the desire, the wood is going to come. So I just wanted to give you that little thing from the Sedra we're going to be reading on Shabbos. So the Mishnayos that we use today, most people use this is called Mishnayos Muvaras, and it was compiled or with a commentary by Kahati, Pinchas Kahati. There are two main commentaries that you're going to find on the page, and the photocopies that you have in front of you show you that first you'll have the Bartanura. He's on the left-hand side, and on the bottom of the page is the Kahati himself. The Bartanura was an Italian rabbi, and he lived in the 15th century. He lived in Italy, and then he made Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael in 1488. And very interestingly, in a way, just like the Esther story, that Esther appears before Haman's decree, and same way that the Bartanura managed to reach Eretz Yisrael in 1488, and he was there when Jews began coming out after the expulsion from Spain in 1492. Many Jews did go to Eretz Yisrael at that time, and they basically provided the means to him to establish a yeshiva in Yerushalayim, the first one in over 1,000 years. And so his commentary is on every page. And then Kahati, his name is Pinchas Kahati. He was born Pinchas Guchtman in 1910 in Warsaw. So I like this a lot because he's a contemporary. This is 20th century commentator. And what he did is he put together the statements of the Bartanura and Rashi and Rambam, and he put it into modern Hebrew. Because he at that time he had gone to Eretz Yisrael, he made Aliyah in 1935. And interestingly, when he was in Poland, he attained smicha, he was a rabbi, but when he got to Israel, there were no jobs for him as a rabbi. So he worked as a bank teller for many, many years. And still he had what to give, and he studied Mishnayos. Mishnayos was established after World War II as memorial to the 6 million. And we're doing here Now in our shul, in our Torah, where we learn 2 Mishnayos every day, and if you do that over the course of about 6 years, you manage to learn all the Mishnayos. So Kahati was learning Mishnayos, and he wanted to help the people to understand it. So he put together a commentary. First, he asked people to help him with it. Certain yeshiva students volunteered, and he was never really satisfied with the inconsistent quality of the commentary. And his wife, wisely, he had only one wife, not 1,000 wives like Shlomo. His wife wisely said to him, "Why don't you take it over yourself? If you're not happy with the job others are doing, why don't you do it? If you want something done right, do it yourself." And he did. And he not only began writing it, he also began publishing it. I guess he did it on a mimeograph machine or something. He began distributing it. The cost became a big expense for him, and sponsors came along, and he continued to produce it. And he finished it in 1963, and it was actually translated into English in 1994. There is a copy of it in the shul library. It's available to you. What I did today, though, is I did it in the Hebrew, and we're going to kind of read it. We're going to read it together. So, the title of this class is Talmud Without Fear, right? So don't be afraid if your Hebrew's not that good. If you can read Hebrew, you're going to be able to follow right along with us. If you can't, so just listen along, and you're going to hear the translation. So, beginning with the first page is the introduction. And he writes an introduction to the Megillah, to the Masechta, and it says, Alma sheshanina b'Masechtas Taanis. And usually the two, Taanis and Megillah, are bound together in the same volume, so he gave the translation, the commentary on that. So in Masechtas Taanis it says, Mishenichnas Av Mematim B'Simcha. In the month of Av, right, in which falls Tisha B'Av, we are less happy. We decrease the amount of happiness. However, Amr B'Gemara, Kishem Shemenitnas Av Mematim B'Simcha, just as when Av begins, the month of Av, which precedes Elul and Tishrei, that we decrease the amount of Simcha. Kat Mishenichnas Adar, so too when Adar comes in, right, and we now are in Adar Beis. Next week, Marty told you, next week is going to be Purim. And by the way, for those of you who are watching online and are going to be expecting a big snowstorm this week, we just got reminded in Florida that spring is starting next week. We don't think about it very much, but one more week from now is going to be spring. So if you're getting a snowstorm, and they predict a big snowstorm for much of the country, this coming week, spring is coming. So Adar, Mishenichnas Adar Marbim Simcha, when Adar comes in, we increase Simcha. Shekein Simchas Purim Mitzvasa, so because the mitzvah of Purim, Mishtapeses al Kol Chadasher, that it spreads over the entire month of Adar. So Af Ba'inyan Kriyas Megillas Esther, Yesh De'av Yerushalmi. So even regarding the reading of the Megillah, for Megillas Esther, there is an opinion in the Talmud Yerushalmi. Remember, there is a Yerushalmi and a Bavli. Mostly we read Bavli, but in the Yerushalmi there is such an idea, Shekol HaChodesh Kosher L'Kriyas Megillah, that you could read the Megillah the entire month. We don't do that. We read it only on Purim. And we're going to learn the days that you do read the Megillah. And my wife Mindel made a very good calendar, which I'm going to show you, right? Part of our visual aid. So you're going to see how it extra works. The Masechta Sofrim Mesupar, and in that Masechta it says, Shebizmano shel Rebbe Meir noga am likros b'motzei Shabbos harishona shel Adar. So in the time of Rebbe Meir, the custom was that they read it on the first Saturday night in the month of Adar. Again, these are customs that we don't do, but that's what they did. Al Balayla, because it says Balayla, it says in that night. So he interprets it as that night. But Motzei Shabbos, Shniya Hayukorim in Balayla Ad V'Dover B'Shalom B'Kol Zor. In other words, they would split it. They would do part of the Megillah on the first Motzei Shabbos, first Saturday night, and the other part on the second Saturday night. Mitzvahs Kriyas HaMegillah, Lomdim Mashe Ne'emar, and we learn the mitzvah of reading the Megillah from where it says in the Megillah, it says Vayomim Ha'ela Nizkarim V'Nasim, that these days were remembered and they were done. V'Zichram Lo Yasuf Mizarim, and the memory will not depart from their descendants. V'Mehem Nizkarim, how do we remember? the incident, the events of Purim, B'kriya, with reading of the Megillah. U'Masechtas Makos Amru, and also in the Masechta Makos it says, Shlosha Dvarim Osu Bezdin Shel Mata V'Skimu Bezdin Shel Ma'ala Al Yodam. There were three actions taken by earthly courts, and the heavenly courts agreed with the decisions of those three courts. Echad Mehem Mikra Megillah, and one of them is the fact that we read Megillah. Shenemar, it says, Kimu v'kibru ha-Yehudim, that they established and they kept the Yehudim Kimu lamala masha kibu lamata, that they accepted above what was done below. Okay. HaRambam Kosev, Rambam says, Kriyas HaMegillah B'zmana, the reading of the Megillah in its time, when it's supposed to be done, mitzvah sasei midivrei sofrim. He says it is a mitzvah it's a mitzvah of Rabbana. It's not obviously it's not a deoraisa, because the Megillah was written after the Torah was completed, of the 5 books of the Torah. So this is something that the Rabbanan decided to do. V'hadvarim yuduim, and it's known, shehi takanos hanaviyim, that prophets were involved in this. V'akol chayavim b'kriyasa, and everyone is required in reading the Megillah. Anashim, v'nashim, men, women, v'geirim v'avadim mishuchram, and converts and freed slaves. And we teach children how to read the Megillah as well. And even the Kohanim who were doing the holy work in the Beis HaMikdash, they would stop what they were doing in the Beis HaMikdash. They would stop the work of bringing the sacrifices to go to shul and hear the Megillah. So even students who are engaged in Torah study would stop their studies and would go ahead and hear the Megillah. So too, it's even a greater understanding that all mitzvahs of the Torah, shekula nidchin mipnei mikra Megillah. So whatever mitzvah you are engaged in, you're to stop it and go ahead and hear the Megillah being read. Mitzvah lekros says kula, it's mitzvah to read the whole thing. The mitzvah lekros of alayla ubayom, and it's mitzvah to read it at night and the day as we do it. We read it the night of Purim and the next day. Mishatiknu oskos b'parate haridinim shall kriyas Megillah Purim. And this is among the rules that are written about reading the Megillah in Purim. Okay, now we'll start the Masechta itself. The first Mishnah is highlighted. It's the first Mishnah in Masechtas Megillah, and we're going to read a number of them. We're going to be skipping some, so I highlighted the number of the ones that we were going to be doing. Megillah nikreis b'achad asar, b'shnei asar, b'shlosh asar, b'arba asar, b'chamisha asar. The Megillah, don't forget, in their days, the calendar was not set the way ours is, right? Our calendar, and those of you who took my shir last year on Thursday nights, this is going to be familiar to you, that the calendar was not established the way that it is now originally. Originally, people established Rosh Chodesh based on seeing the moon, right? Some witnesses would see the moon, they would come to Yerushalayim, testify before the court, and then they would establish the new moon. In our days, of course, the calendar is set, and there are reasons for it, that the minim, the apostates, tried to mess up the other Jews by bringing false testimony, and then when they began to inform them by the means of torches on the mountain, so they would light the torches a day early, and so on. So nowadays we know the dates are. Back then they didn't know, and therefore the Megillah could be read on the 11th, on the 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th of Adar. Any of those days, lo pachos v'lo yoser, not earlier than the 11th and not later than the 15th. And we're going to get into how that all worked. Krachan amukafin choma mimos Yeshua ben Nun, those cities that had a wall around them in the days of Yeshua ben Nun, those days korim b'chamisha also. Those cities read on the 15th. Kfarim Vayaros Gedolos, the villages and large cities, Karim Ba'arba Asar, they read it on the 14th, which is actually Purim. Elashak Kfarim Makdimin Liyom HaKnisa. But the villages would advance to the day of the of gathering. So now we're going to read actually together the Kahati, which is a modern Hebrew commentary on the Megillah. On the bottom of the page, you can see the first bold word says Megillah on the bottom half of the page. Everybody got it?
First page.
Okay. Megillah Nikre. So what he does is he takes a few key words and then he explains them. Okay. Megillah Nikre B'chadasar Ba'adar. Right. We know that, but if you didn't know, if you just read the Mishnah, you wouldn't know what month. So he's letting you know it's in the month of Adar. B'shnei Masar, O b'shnei Masar ba'Adar. Again, on the 12th day of Adar. O b'shlosha Asar, b'arba Asar, O b'chamisha Asar ba'Adar. Again, he's reminding you that it's this month. Klomar ba'achad michamisha zmanam ha'elu. To let you know, it's one of these 5 days. Not necessarily the way we do it. We know that we're gonna read the Megillah next week on Wednesday night and Thursday morning. But back then they didn't know until the calendar until the new month was established per month. Lo pachos, lo lifnei echad hasar, not before the 11th, v'lo yoser, and then he says v'lo la'acher chamisha asar, not after the 15th. Okay, between the 11th and the 15th, those are the days. Kraken hamukafin choma mos Yeshua ben Nun, those cities that were walled. It says Yehoyu mukafin choma bisman shekivesh Yoshua es haaretz, those cities that were surrounded by walls at the time Yoshua conquered the land. Even though nowadays there is no wall around them, so certain cities that had walls around them at the time of Yoshua, even though nowadays there is no wall around them, still in Korin is a Megillah. They read the Megillah B'chamisha Asar ba'Adar on the 15th, on the next day. In other words, everybody else reads on the 14th. Those walled cities read on the 15th, and that's a remembrance to the fact that Shushan, which qualifies, they read on the next day. Okay, Kfarim v'ayoros gedolos Korim ba'asar. The city, the villages and large cities read on the 14th. Shneimar, as it says in the Megillah. Al kol haYehudim haPerazim hayoshim ba'ari haPerazos. All the Jews were spread out; it was scattered among the scattered cities. Osin es yom arba asar lechodesh Adar. They made the 14th day of Adar simcha u'mishtav yom tov. It was a simcha, and they had a feast, a big meal, and it was yom tov, and it was a holiday. U'me'achar she'haPerazim korim ba'arba asar. After the scattered cities would read on the 14th. Nimtzu lomdim shamukafin korim b'chamisha asar. We learned that those walled cities read on the 15th. Shekain shemasubra Megillah, just as it is explained in the Megillah. Hayehudim asher b'Shushan, so those Jews who lived in Shushan, v'asher ba'arei haPerazos lo nachu me'evayim b'yom echad. They did not rest on the first day. In other words, they got another day that they were able to go ahead and take revenge on their enemies. El haPerazim nachu ba'arba asar, the scattered cities, they rested on the 14th day. V'asher b'Shushan nachu ba'chamisha asar, and those Jews who lived in Shushan rested from the war on the 15th. Vasu kol echad es hayom shenachu bo yom mishteh b'simcha. And so the tradition follows that those rested on the 14th, that was when their holiday was, and the others, the walled cities, on the 15th. Lefichach, therefore, kishekavu yom tov lahodos. So once the establishment of the holiday for the doros, for the generations, kavuhu lechol echad b'yom shana bo shenach bo. Everybody, it was established on the day that that person or that city rested. Leprazim ba'arba asar, the scattered cities to the 14th, Shushan b'chamisha asar, and Shushan, which was a walled city in the time of Yeshua, on the 15th. V'keven shahayisa Shushan mukafes choma kavu shekrachim hamukafim chona dinam kashushan. And since Shushan was a city that had a wall, so the rule was all the cities that had walls celebrated the same way as Shushan did. Shekorim b'chamisha asar, and they read on the 15th. Okay, so what is the obvious question? We're celebrating a Jewish holiday. Why do we base it on Shushan, which is a Goyish city, right? And then again, the miracle happened in the time of Esther and Mordechai, why do we go back and look at what happened in the time of Yoshua? So fortunately, Kahati answers it for us. He says, "V'lamo tolu es hekaf hachoma b'zman Yoshua." So why did they set the time, or they establish the time of the walled city in the time of Yoshua, v'lo b'zman Achashverosh kamo Shushan, and not take the look at all the cities that were walled in the time of Achashverosh, which was quite a bit later than what happened in the time of Yoshua. B'Yushalmi Muvuratam, and then again the Gemara Yerushalmi explains, K'dei lachlo kavod l'Eretz Yisrael, to give honor to Eretz Yisrael, not to Persia. After all, it's a Jewish holiday. So now we're on the next page. Or let's look it over. Yerushalayim, in the time of Achashverosh, had been destroyed. Right. That's why Mordechai was there in Shushan. And it's because there was no wall at that point around Yerushalayim, because Yerushalayim had been destroyed. So it was destroyed in the days of Achashverosh. And there were no walls around Yerushalayim. And what you did was establish the rule that walled cities in the time of Achashverosh are the ones that have a separate special celebration. What would happen then? Yerushalayim wouldn't participate because Yerushalayim did not have a wall at that time. That all the other cities in Eretz Yisrael which did not have walls would be like the scattered cities. Hilkach tiknu shekola arim shahayu mukafos choma bisman kivush haaretz. So therefore, they established all the cities that had a wall at the time that the land was conquered. Yikru b'chamisha asar Shushan would read on the 15th, just as was done in Shushan. Af al pi she'ein lehem achshav choma. Even though now, so in the time of Achashverosh and also in our time, that they do not have a wall. But still it says, V'yel zikaron l'Eretz Yisrael b'nei Seh, that it should be a remembrance to the land of Israel because of that miracle. Gemara lomdim, and we learned that the Gemara zeh b'gzeir shava. Gzeir shava is an analogy. Shneimar b'Megillah al kain haYehudim aprazim. That says that in the Megillah that says the Jews that were scattered. V'nemar, and it says in Dvarim, Kol Eila Arim Bitzuros Choma Gavoa Levad Me'ore Prazi. They use the same word, Prazi. It's a Ma Sham Mimos Yeshua Ben Nun, just as the cities that are mentioned in the Torah are the ones that were walled in the time of Yeshua. Afkan Mimos Yeshua Ben Nun. So too, here, regarding the reading of the Megillah, it's those cities that were walled in the time of Yeshua. V'afal Pisha Posek Zeh Nemar B'Moshe, even though this pasuk was written at the time that Moshe fought the wars against Sichon and Og and so on, and so that wasn't really Yeshua. It was Moshe. Mikol Makom Tolim Yeshua, but still we relate it to what happened to Yeshua. Lefisha Hu Ichnis Es Yisrael Eretz, because who was the one that brought the Jews into Eretz Yisrael was Yeshua, and we're bringing kavod to Eretz Yisrael, so we want to honor the person who brought them in. So then it's those people, those cities that were walled in his time. Od, Mosifan Amaforshim B'Tama Devar, and also other commentaries said about this matter. Shahol Yeshua Benun Hoya Rishon Shenucham Bel Molek. Who was his first enemy that he fought against? Yeshua? Amalek, right? That was the famous incident where Yeshua was leading the troops and Moshe was standing on the hilltop. He raised his arms and Yeshua would be winning. So Yeshua was the first one to fight against Amalek. Shemizaro Yotza Haman, and from whom came out Haman, right? He was a descendant of Agag, the king of Amalek. Kasuv, and it says Kasov Zos Zikaron B'Sefer B'Sim B'Oznei Yeshua, and when it talks about the war against Amalek, it says write it down and speak it directly to the ears of Yeshua. Hilka Kavuz Man HaMukafin Shel Al Shmo. Therefore, they established a time of the walled cities on his name. Mikol Makom Nimtzu Lomdim. Even so, we learn Sheshnei Zmanim Nikva'u L'Kriyas HaMegillah. So there are 2 times when the Megillah is read. Chamisha Asar Ba'adar Nimtzu Lomdim. We learn about the 15th. Sheshnei Zmanim Nikvu L'Kriyas Megillah, Chamisha Asar Ba'adar Nitzvolim, right? We read it on the 15th. Ba'ad L'Kracham Amakaf and Choma, those cities that had a wall around them, from the days of Yeshua, Barba Asar L'Yarasu Kfar, and the 14th on the other unwalled cities and the villages. Continuing, he says, Ela hashakfar makdimim, and we said that the villages will advance the time that they read. In other words, they'll read it earlier. So kriyas and lepamim, sometimes liyom haknisa, to the day of the gathering day. So today we read the Torah in shul on Mondays and Thursdays, and court was established as taking place on Mondays and Thursdays. Markets were done on Mondays and Thursdays. Those were the days when people would assemble. They'd come into town on Monday and Thursday. So sometimes Yom Sheni O Chamishi B'Shvuah, Monday or Thursday, Shebahem B'nei HaKfarim Miskansim B'Yaros Gedolos. On those days, the villagers, people who lived in the outlying villages, would come into the cities, Lahavi Dineim Lefnei Bezdin, because they would, if they had litigation to take care of, they would come in on the days when the court was in session, right? These people were farmers. They didn't have a lot of time to spare, so they would come in the day that court was in session. Hayoshim Michal Sheni V'Chamishi Mitakanas Ezra. And Ezra established that Monday and Thursday had to be court days, and so people would come in on those days that they had a court lawsuit to bring or whatever. And because many times the villagers were not expert in reading the Megillah, so hiklu bahem sheyikro lahem echad mibnei ha'ir b'yom haknisa. They would get a Bal Koreh from the city who would read for them. They would come in, so the villagers would come in on a Monday or a Thursday, and we're going to find out when that happened, that they would advance it to Monday to Thursday, and they would get someone in town who was capable of reading it, and he would read it for them. So they would fulfill the mitzvah of Megillah, even though it wasn't on the actual set day, but they were given the benefit that they could come in early. Why? And so they weren't going to be bothered and have extra trouble to come again. Because don't forget, it wasn't like today, where we just get in the car, or we take an Uber, or we get on the Century Village bus, or whatever it is we want to go somewhere. Back then, travel was not so easy. And so for them to come into the city was a big project. It could take them a long time to get there. We don't want to take them away from their work and everything. To come a second time to hear the Megillah being read, they would come in on the Yom Knisa, the gathering day, and then someone would read the Megillah for them on that day. V'yesh meforshim, and there are some that explain, Shiyom Sheni v'Chamishi nikrom yimei haknisa, that Monday and Thursday are called the day of assembling. L'fishim is kansim bahem b'nei hakfarim ba'yoros, because the villagers would come into the city, l'tfilah b'tzibor, to daven with a minyan, l'kriyas Torah, and for the kriyas Torah. Because again, if somebody was a farmer living in an outlying village, it wasn't so easy to gather 10 people together to daven together with a minyan, and maybe they again did not have someone capable of reading the Torah for them. So they would come into the cities on Monday and Thursday for the benefit of davening with the minyan, hearing kriyas Torah. The Gemara Amru, and it says in the Gemara, Sheikhilu Levnei Akfarim, that the rabbis made it more lenient on the villages, Mipnei Shemaspikin Miyam Umazon Lachem Keshebekrachim, because they would be bringing in the food and water to their friends in the cities, because the way that the land was developed in Eretz Yisrael, it's very interesting. If you're an environmentalist, that the city was in the center, and then they would have a green belt around the city, was basically uncultivated land, and then beyond that were where the farms were. So in the middle of the city is very little, there was no produce being grown, unless maybe somebody had a garden in the backyard or something, but basically the farms where the food was grown and where they had the wells and the springs and so on were outside, so the farmers would bring it in. So we want to encourage them to come. And so they would come in on Monday and Thursday to participate in a minyan to daven and to hear the Torah being read, and they would at that time bring in the necessary supplies for those people living in the cities. And since they would come early because of the day that they would gather, sometimes they might read on the 13th. Palmim b'shanim b'shnei masar palmim. Sometimes on the 12th, upalmim b'achadasa, and sometimes on the 11th. So sometimes they read on the 14th, 13th, 12th to 11th. Avalol lefnei achadasar, but not before the 11th. Kimeforish b'mishnah haba, which will be explained to you in the next Mishnah. Okay, so we know between the 11th and the 15th. That takes care of the first Mishnah. Next Mishnah, Mishnah Beis, is going to explain to us how it all worked. The Mishnah says, Ketzad, how did this work, that they read it on different days? Chalios Yom Abasar B'Sheni, so if the 14th of Adar came out on a Monday, right, so what happened on Monday? Monday was a market day, Monday was a court day, it was a day that people would come in. So Kvarim Vayaros Gedolo, so the villages and large cities, Korin Bo Bayom, they'd read on the 14th, that day, right? That was the day. Umakofos Choma Lamachar, and those walled cities, as we just learned, read the next day, the following day, they would read on Tuesday. Simple, standard, that's the ideal. However, Chalios B'Shlishi Obor Revi, so suppose the 14th of Adar, which is Purim, came out on Yom Shlishi, which is Tuesday, or Wednesday, what would happen then?
It's a problem.
It's a problem, right? What would they do? So, Kfarim Makdimin Liyom HaKnisa. The villages would advance to the day of assembling, of the day of the court day, minyan day, whatever. Vayoros Gedolos Korim Bo Bayom. And the big cities would still read on Tuesday or Wednesday. Okay, so you now have the villages reading on Monday, the big cities reading on Tuesday, let's say, Umakofos Choma Lamachar, and the walled cities the next day. So you could have a situation where if Purim came out on the 14th, you'd have 3 Megillah readings. You could have the Megillah being read on Monday for the villagers, on Tuesday for the city residents, and on Wednesday for the people who live in the walled cities. Okay, it's being read on 3 different days. Okay? What?
They gave everybody a chance.
Give everybody a chance, exactly right. Chalios b'chamishi, so, right, so now suppose the 14th, Purim came out on the 15th, on Yom Chamishi, on Thursday. So in that case, Kvarim Vayaros Gedolos, Korim Bo Bayom. So in that case, since it came out on a Thursday, which is a Yom Knisa, it's a Torah reading day, so they would read that day, on Thursday, right? Umakofos Choma Lamachar. And the walled cities would read on Friday, the next day, right? Okay, that's pretty easy, right? How about this? Chalios Erev Shabbos. So now suppose it came out on the 14th came out on Friday.
Problem.
What would you do? It says Kfarim Makdim Yom HaKnisa. Okay, so the villagers would advance to Thursday, right? Vayaros Gedolos Umakofos Choma Korin Bo Bayom. And in this case, the large cities and the walled cities would all read on the 14th, which was Friday. Why? Because you don't read on Shabbos, and then if they waited till Sunday, it would be the 16th. And we already learned the principle, not before the 11th, not till after the 15th. Okay? Right. So continuing, Chalios b'Shabbos. So suppose it came out on Shabbos. What would you do then? So then, Kfarim Vayaros Gedol. By the way, Purim does not come out on Shabbos, right? Our calendar is set up that Purim can never come out on Shabbos. So you'll never, no matter how old you are. I know he said Shlomo was young at 52. He doesn't qualify for Century Village yet, but we all do. But nobody can remember Purim being on a Friday night, right? Never happens. It can't happen. But let's say it did come out because don't forget the calendar was established based on when the moon was sighted. So let's say Purim came out on a Shabbos. What would you do? Kfarim Vayaros Gedolos Makdimin v'Korim Liyom HaKnisa. So now the villages in large cities would do it on Thursday, right? Umakofos Choma Lamachar, and the walled cities would read it on Friday, right? So you'd have people would read it Thursday and Friday. How about this? Chalios Achar. So suppose it came out on Sunday. What would happen? Kfarim Makdim Liyom HaKnisa. So now the villages would go back to Thursday, right? Which is the Sunday is the 14th, so Shabbos is the 13th, Friday is the 12th,
The 11th?
the 11th, right. So they would go back, they advance to the 11th. Vayoros Gedolos Korim Bayom. And the large cities now could read on Sunday, no problem. Umakofos Chomo Lamachar. And the walled cities read, so you have a situation where you have Thursday is being read, Friday and Shabbos not being read, then it's being read again Sunday and Monday. Right? So we have a little calendar that Mindel drew up to show you. So we left the dates alone, but let's say here's Purim is the 14th, and if it comes out on a Monday, first case, right? So Purim comes out on the 14th. So now the walled cities are going to read it. The villages and the big cities are going to read it on the 14th, right? Right. And the walled cities will read it the next day, which is the 15th, right? So, right? So suppose Purim came out on Tuesday. So now, if Purim comes out on Tuesday, what happens? So now, Purim comes out on Tuesday, so the villages, they go back to Monday, right? The big cities are okay on Tuesday. Walled cities are going to be on
We're good.
Wednesday, right? Okay. So now suppose Purim comes out on Wednesday. Right, all these possibilities. So Purim comes out on Wednesday, the 14th.
Hold your sign up.
Purim comes out on Wednesday, the 14th. So the big cities will read it that day. The villages, they'll still go to Monday, right? They go back to Monday. And the walled cities are going to read it
Everything's
Thursday,
good.
right? So now you have the 14th, 13th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th. Okay? So now, if Purim comes out on Thursday, so what happened? Purim comes out on Thursday, the big cities are going to read on Thursday. Now the villages, you're going to put them on Thursday,
Yep.
right? Because Thursday is a market day, right? So now the big cities and the villages are reading the same day, and the walled cities are going to read on Friday. Okay? So move Purim now to Friday. What happens? I lost my mask there. So the Purim comes out on Friday. The big cities read on Friday. The villages go back to Thursday. The walled cities are going to read together with the big cities on Friday. Okay, two more now. Now, if it comes out on Shabbos, nobody reads on Shabbos, right? So then the villages go back to Thursday. The big cities go back to, no, they go to Sunday, right? Because you don't read it on Shabbos, and the big cities don't
They don't go
advance.
behind. They go ahead.
So they go to Sunday, and the walled cities also read it on Sunday, right? No, the big cities, the big cities go back to Thursdays with the villages, and the walled cities go to Sunday. Is that right? I'm confused myself. So if it comes out on Shabbos, what happens? It comes out on Shabbos.
The villages in the large
The
cities.
villages for.
Okay, if it comes on Shabbos, Kfarim Vayoros Gedolos Magdimin V'Korim Yom HaKnisa. So, all right, the villages and the big cities read on, if Shabbos is Purim, the villages and the big cities read on Thursday, and the walled cities read on Sunday. Okay? So now the last case is if it comes out on a Sunday, Purim comes out on Sunday. So what happens? So the big cities read on Sunday. Right? That's the day, no problem. The walled cities are going to read on Monday, and the villages go back to Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're reading on the 11th, and then you have the 14th, 15th. So 12th and 13th, nothing's happening. Okay? So that's all the possible combinations that that happened before the calendar was established. So in the couple of minutes that we have left, I'm gonna skip the Kahati for a second, and I'm gonna go to a definition. So starting the next Mishnah, Mishnah Gimel, third Mishnah. So the Mishnah says, Ezohi Ir Gedola. What is a big city? How do we define a big city? Right? The definition of a big city today might be quite different from what it was back then. How do we define a large city in terms of whether the Megillah is read or not? So the Mishnah says, Kol sheyesh ba'asara batlanim. But the word batlan, if you know Yiddish, is kind of a derogatory term in a way.
Yeah,
But
batlan.
right, somebody's a batlan. But back then, it was really somebody who had the time, somebody who had enough spare time, leisure time, that he could afford to be in shul every time that a minyan was required. So that meant that people could come in at any time to those large cities and expect to find a minyan in shul, right? So my father's, rest in peace, when he was bar mitzvah, lived on a farm in upstate New York, and in order to make sure that there was a minyan for his bar mitzvah, they drove to the next big town because they knew that there's always going to be a minyan there. And my grandmother made the herring, whatever it is, and they made a bar mitzvah for him. So that same idea, where there's a large city, how is it? They had to have there 10 people, and those 10 people were 3 judges, so that would made up a rabbinical court. 3 people to take care of the collection and distribution of tzedakah among the poor. Then they had to have a sofer, that's 7, a teacher for children, a chazan, and a court administrator. So you had to have all those 10 people who basically were devoted to the tzorchei tzibur, to the needs of the community. That was considered to be a big city. Pachos mikan, says the Mishnah, less than that, if you don't have 10 people who are always available for the needs of the community, so they're always in shul when it's time for a minyan, harei zekvar, that's a village. So no matter where you live, if there's no minyan every day, 3 times a day, you're living in a village, my friends. That's not a big city, according to what the Mishnah has to say. Be'elo amru, that's what they said, makdimim v'lo ma'acharin, that in terms of that, they would advance, they would not push it forward for the villages. Avosman atzei kohanim, but in the time when they would gather the wood for the base of the Mikdash, for Tisha B'Av and on Tisha B'Av, for Chagiga, v'Hakel, ma'achrim v'lo makdimin. So Tisha B'Av, as we know, if you need to, you push it forward. You don't go back. So it's interesting that when it comes to Purim, we're going ahead. Tisha B'Av, we go back. Af al yom let's see. Oh, I'm skipping the page. Okay. Right? What am I missing here? Somehow or other, I got all my copies, my pages confused. So still in Mishnah Gimel. Yeah. So Afal Pish Amur Makdimim V'lo Macharin, even though we said that we come early and we don't advance, Mutarim Behesped Tanis Umatanas Lavyonim. So let's say on one of those cases where we had to advance the day. So if Purim came out on a Tuesday, so now you're going to read it on Monday. So it's not really Purim. You're going to read the Megillah that day, but it's not Purim, and therefore you are permitted on that day to have a funeral, right, and to deliver eulogies at the funeral, and you're allowed to have individual private fasts. And we also do Matanos Lavyonim on those days. And you can imagine why, because it's convenient. People are in the city, it's convenient for them they can find one of the gabayim of tzedakah, and they can take care of that. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, Amosai, when does this take place? Makam shenich nasim b'sheni b'chamishi, in a place where they come in on Monday and Thursday, that's when the Megillah reading is advanced. Aval makam she'enich nasim lo b'sheni v'lo b'chamishi, so in a place where no matter how big the city was, but if they do not advance the date of the reading the Megillah to Monday or Thursday, ein koranasa ela b'zman. They only read it on the time, the day for which it was set. So only read it on the 14th. So if you don't have the access to such a place, then you only read it on the day. Yes, Herschel?
How do we deal with Tanit Esther?
All these different days.
So Tanis Esther is always the day before Purim, before the Megillah is read. So in those cases, when Purim comes out on a Friday, for example, so Tanis Esther
On Thursday.
is on Thursday, that's no problem. But when Purim would come out on a Saturday night, which happens sometimes, which means Purim is Saturday night, reading the Megillah Saturday night, and Sunday morning. So we fast on Thursday. Thursday, right? Because you do not establish a fast on Friday. So, and that's kind of the only situation where we go back when Purim comes out on a. Pardon?
You do have one fast on Friday.
One fast on Friday, right? That one fast on Friday that the Mishnayos of Purim, right? Is only no. Sabra Tavis, right? Sabra Tavis, because it must come out on the 10th day. That's the only one that we fast on Friday. Otherwise, the public fasts are not done on Friday. Okay, and we'll continue with the subject for next week.
Go ahead.